Hi there, newbie Lolita, expert seamstress. Some meta humor for you. My name is Maya, this is my channel where I sew ridiculous things and teach you how to do it too, and also occasionally host sewing patterns. I wanted to make today's video. It's been on my plans for a really long time now because I wanted to address all of the beginner sewing Lolita questions that I see popping up in forums like over and over and over again in one fell swoop. Because there's a lot of people that want to sew a cord who are newbies, either to sewing or also to Lolita as well, you know, and they want to get into the fashion and the skill of sewing. So I figured I would lay out all of the answers to beginner questions that I tend to see cropping up all over the place, as well as laying out some search terms and some ways of finding information and materials that you might want or that are common. If you have a question that I didn't cover, feel free to ask it in the comments below and either I or another seamstress will try to help you out with it. I have a lot of like very helpful seamstress fairies that follow my channel and I'll see them like commenting on questions. It's great. Anyways, fabric selection. The best beginner fabric, in my opinion, is a nice light to mid-weight woven cotton blend, or full cotton fabric, like a quilting cotton that you'd find at basically any fabric store. While velvet, organza, and satin are indeed used for main pieces, they aren't as common, and each one has its own unique issues. Organza puckers, satin can look cheap and costumey, and sourcing velvet that isn't like costume stretch velvet can be really hard. But why is a cotton blend superior? The grain of the fabric is easy to follow. Grain is basically, all fabric is woven, right? There's little threads through it. And that the direction of the grain and whether or not it's straight can affect how your garment fits. If the grain is wobbly, you're gonna wind up with a wiggly finished garment. And on cotton, it's A, harder for the fabric to, you know, wobble on you, and B, it's really easy to follow the lines of the fabric. And when you're just learning how to sew or learning how to sew in a new style, it can be really helpful to not have to worry about the grain as much. Cotton is also really good to wear. It's lightweight, wicks away moisture, and Lolita tends to have a ton of layers. So especially in warmer climates, cotton is very nifty to have on hand. Cotton is also widely available. There are loads of color-fast prints in it. Color-fast means that the color won't like wash out when you wash the fabric. It's safe to be laundered. Basically, the whole quilting section in most craft stores is color-fast and cotton and basically Lolita suitable. Not all lace is created equal is another thing that you want to keep in mind. Lace is a huge staple of Lolita, but nobody wants a lace monster, which is basically a dress that is monstrous and lacy. So how do we avoid this? Good quality lace is a really good start, but we're going to circle back to that. But first, I'm going to talk about some of the more obvious mistakes that I do see people trip into. Let's start by dragging me. Buy the bolt lace, like lace fabric, is almost never what you're looking for. Look at these sleeves. Look at how bad they are, okay? This is just by the bolt lace that I trimmed into shape. And it looks cheap. It looks bad. If I had used lace trim or a lace that had a border design to it, it would have been a little bit more neat and tidy and it would have looked better, but these just look bad. They have no drape, they have no ethereal elements to it. 0 out of 10. Here's another example that a Lolita found while at a thrift store. This was someone's project that they fell out of love with. Like, they handmade this, they fell out of love with it, and then this woman found it at the thrift store. And I attribute the original owner of the garment falling out of love with it to this sheet of lace here, because it's very static. It doesn't do anything for the design. Your eye isn't being led anywhere. And like, static prints can have this kind of a problem too, where they don't actually contribute to the design at all. But with lace, because it is such a decorative element, whenever it's static and it does nothing and it leads your eye nowhere, it can come out looking very costumey. Even if this were like a lace medallia or a linear lace print, where, you know, it was pushing your eye out to the edges or going up and down, it would have been awesome. It would have been a lot better. But how do we find good lace? So lace trim is likely what you're going to want. You can either go to a craft store and find that section, or you can go online and look for it. which is what a lot of people wind up doing because the selection is massive. There are a ton of ways to use lace trim, and I'm very sorry in advance for just how deeply I'm about to dive into it, but like honestly, I could make another 7 videos on just this topic. So when you're searching online, you will often in the description or sometimes the title see a number followed by a little quote mark symbol. For example, a 2 with quote marks. Basically what that means is that's a 2-inch wide lace. So not the length, but the width of the lace. The length will be usually in yards or meters or whatever is common in your area. Like I said, 2-inch lace is really common, very easy to find. 3 to 6-inch lace is awesome to have on hand, especially for like bordering a skirt hem or putting at the bottom of things. It's nifty. Or creating ruffles as well, because a 2-inch lace doesn't always give you quite the drama that you might want. And like I said, you can buy lace trim by the meter or the foot or the yard, but you can also buy it by the roll. This is an industrial roll of lace. There is a ton of it. I got this for $5 from a resale craft store, but it's more common to get rolls of lace that are a bit more like this. As far as search terms go, I'm going to get more into this in a moment, and I'm also going to share a resource with you that's super helpful, but net lace, Kalani lace, and bobbin lace are like the 3 best laces. In the description box below, I'm going to be linking Yeah Lolita, who has a whole blog post on beginner lace search terms. Also, lacetrim.com has a pretty helpful like lace encyclopedia that then you can use to search for different laces through them. I've never bought from lacetrim.com, but they seem legit. And at the very least, their encyclopedia is pretty helpful. Now, I'm going to show you some nitty-gritty examples of lace and its drape and its quality and like how you can tell a scratchy lace from a not scratchy lace. If this isn't something that you necessarily need right now, or you're going to be bored by it because you already know a lot about lace for whatever reason, here's the timestamp you ought to skip to miss all of that.
Okay, so here are some of the more exciting types of lace. This is a decorative lace trim. This is a lace that's created with an embroidery machine, and the backing is then dissolved out of it. It's very, very cool. So decorative lace trim or decorative embroidery lace is how you would find this. And you know, this daisy chain style is very popular. I see it a lot. I picked this one up at Walmart. I'm very much excited to use it. I think it'll look great on a sleeve or a bodice. This is also a lace trim. This is a cotton embroidery lace trim. I'm not entirely sure how this one was made. Picked this up at Joann's, but this is just to show you that lace trim, decorative lace trim, has a lot of variations. This here is a variation of beading lace that I was able to find. So what you do is you take a ribbon and you can weave that through right here, and then that gives you like a little pop of color. You can also put the ribbon on top or behind, and it's just a really nice addition. This is an example of what the beading lace looks like with a ribbon gone through. However, this one here, well, this one, you know, it's got some give to it. It is polyester and it is a little bit shiny, but you do see it has drape, and you can fold it and it won't hold the fold and it won't really fight too much. It's drapey, right? And whenever I'm moving my fingers along it, it doesn't really make a noise. It's not really all that scratchy. But then this one here has very high polyester count, and it's not very high quality polyester. So you can hear like that scratchy noise. This is scratchy lace that people in Lolita tend to complain about. This is Lace Monster lace. Also, you can tell that this is not very high quality because they, instead of sewing it, they melted the ribbon to the lace to attach it. I still might wind up using it for a project, but that's just me. And now this one here I wanted to include. This is not a beading lace, but it can mimic, you know, how you might use a beading lace with a ribbon. This is a decorative chiffon ribbon. I wanted to talk about the ways that you can stack a variety of laces. You know, now that we've looked at all those interesting embroidered lace trims, this here is just some edging lace and a strip of beading lace, right? And over here, we also have some beading lace and then 2 layers of edging lace. This is net lace, both of these. I'm going to bring out some more examples of net lace in just a moment. And this is a 2-inch lace and a 1-inch lace, it looks like. Net lace gets that name because if you see here how there's that net pattern and then there's an embroidery done on top of it or a weaving done on top of it, that's why it's called net lace. Some more examples of net lace are this big chunky one. This one is very scratchy, as you can see, because it's got this nylon casing around the top. A lot of laces, cheap laces, will have a nylon casing around the top that you could just unpick and stitch off, and then you have a higher quality lace, because while this is a little bit scratchy, it's not that bad, and it has kind of a fun 60s style floral pattern. These ones here are pretty typical for what you would see if you went to your local craft store, at least in America. And you can see here they've got that scratchy net backing, which as long as it's sandwiched in fabric, you wouldn't see that much. These laces are like a mid quality. You can see if this one picks up the light. It's very shiny. It is very polyester. It's scratchy. These are all net laces. This one I probably will wind up using for something just because it is rather charming. However, this one I don't think I will ever wind up using, because do you see all these little stringies hanging off of it? It's not worth the work to go in and trim that for me, because I can just get, you know, a higher quality lace online, or look out and find it at one at the thrift store of the same quality, or of the same design, but in a much higher quality. Now, real quick, I wanted to show you the difference between a very low quality polyester net lace and a very kind of mid-tier polyester net lace. Because this one here is like an embroidered net lace. It's not eyelet lace. And a very high quality expensive net lace. Now let's start with the high quality one. You see this one here, it has a soft nylon backing here, and it has a little bit of a gather, so it's already pre-ruffled. And this lace here, it's this nice net. It's woven in one go, but that's still a net lace. This isn't my favorite type of net lace. There are some that are super intricate and beautiful that you can find online, and there's ones that you can make with an embroidery machine that are much more impressive, but you know, this is what I had available. This is what's in my price range. And then this mid-tier one here, you know, its design is a lot chunkier, it's a lot less elegant, but it's still a nice pop of color. It's a nice piece of trim, and this edging is a lot scratchier. You know, this is like nylon netting or tulle that it's held together with. And now this one here, this is like absolute lace monster. I don't even think Devil Inspired would use a lace of this quality. It holds a shape, like you see here. It doesn't really crease. It's got that scratchy noise. It's got a scratchy noise to it, and the feel, it's very rough and chunky. And you can see just by looking at it, compared to, you know, even just a higher quality Walmart lace. You know, this one here came from Walmart. Actually, a lot of these came from Walmart. You can just see the difference in quality. You know, this one has a lot softer thread to it. It has a more elegant small design, and then this one here is a big woven chunk. And you know, it still might have applications on a petticoat, but for the most part, you're not going to want this on your skin, and you're not going to want this in a design, because any ruffles are going to look really harsh as compared to this one, which just has this nice subtle gather. This also doesn't have any casing to hold in a ruffle. You'd have to ruffle this yourself. Now, one of the easiest types of lace to find is embroidered eyelet lace. So this is basically just fabric that has been embroidered and cut. So those are, you know, kind of similar to the way that you would make a buttonhole. These little eyelets are cut out and they're embroidered, and this stuff is super easy to find. It's super cute. It comes in a wide variety of colors. You know, I've got this same design here, but in dark blue. I also have 500 yards of a very similar design in an eyelet lace over there, which I'm quite excited to get some use out of. It can also come fluted, which is exciting. This is called fluting or shearing. This is also sometimes referred to as an accordion pleat, and that's just some nice texture for you. Very fun. I've never seen these used in Lolita necessarily, but it's a really cool lace type that I think would be fun to utilize. I also wanted to talk real quick about stretch lace. A lot of lace trim that you will find will be stretch lace, and this one here, you see stretch lace is very soft. It's got a lot of drape. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you know what you're getting into. It's also very lightweight, so if weight is an issue for your cords, like if they're digging into your shoulders because of the weight of all the lace, which I don't think would be a problem, this might be an option for you. But the thing is, like, they're made to be stretchy, so they're sometimes a little bit more expensive, but when you're ordering online, sometimes you'll wind up with a stretch lace, and the only reason why you would maybe not want them is, like I said, they're very limp. They don't really hold, like, their gathers wouldn't really add volume. And they are a little bit shiny, as you can see. If you compare that to one of the other laces, here's a good one to compare it to, because this one's also polyester. It's like a matte finish on the woven polyester, but this one has a little bit of a shiny finish because there's a little bit of spandex in there, right? And here's another lace for you to see. that is a stretch lace. You can see it's got a very nice design. It could have a place, especially like on a wrist cuff. I have seen stretch lace wrist cuffs because they're easy to slide on and off. But the thing is, it does have that shine, it does have that stretch. And also laundering might be an issue. You might not want to launder something made with stretch lace on a very high heat because it breaks down the spandex over time.
General sewing knowledge for Lolita. I had been sewing for about 10 years whenever I got into Lolita specifically very intensely last year. So I had a nice leg up. If you don't have any like previously existing sewing knowledge, then I would highly recommend the Otome no Sewing book. This was lovingly translated into English by Fua Fashion, and it is great. I have her blog linked below, and it's pretty easy to find the translated book on there. The Gothic Lolita Bibles also tend to have sewing instructions, as well as sometimes sewing patterns and drafting instructions, and those are amazing to flip through. So I will link a resource that has a whole bunch of the digitized GLBs for you to peruse at your leisure. And if you're looking for like hands-on sewing instruction, there are some really great Lolita channels that do that. There's Sort of Me. At the moment, I don't have like a ton of stuff out yet. Come back in February. But the Stitchess has a couple of really good Lolita tutorials. Her petticoat tutorial is actually really fantastic, for the record, so highly recommend that. And petticoats are really good to practice on because if you mess up, no one's really gonna see it. What the Beck has a gold standard level JSK drafting tutorial that I think is amazing. She uses really simple, clear language. There's a lot of very accessible tools and techniques, so I will have that linked below as well. Pattern! If you are a beginner in Lolita or in sewing, one of the most important things that's going to guide your design is the pattern. Unfortunately, there aren't a ton of great ones on the market. Like, there's not just like a surplus of Lolita JSK patterns. I've actually fallen prey to some bad Lolita main piece patterns before. And needless to say, I was very unhappy with what I wound up with. I basically only ever used it as a costume. But really, the pattern is going to direct your design a ton, like I said. If the ruffles are awkwardly long or weirdly short, then you're going to wind up with ruffles that don't sit quite right. If you're new to this sort of thing, you might not recognize looking at the flat pattern that that's going to be an issue. Also, if the yardage in the skirt isn't large enough, then you're not going to be able to fit a petticoat under there and get the volume that you're looking for. And if you don't have, the silhouette, then you don't have a successful design. So for the most part, the big four pattern companies are out the window. However, Moda LaBelle does have a tutorial series where she walks you through the making of a Simplicity 8444? Yes. And she's a very talented seamstress, so I would highly recommend checking that out. There are also a few indie designers that have made pretty good patterns as well. Tea and Treadle on Etsy has both PDF and paper patterns that get mailed to your house, and she has got 2 JSK styles and an OP, and they've got great reviews. I've never personally met them or talked to them, and I haven't personally used one of their patterns, but I did watch a now deleted sewing through of one of her JSK patterns that was very good, actually. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the tutorial series, which makes me so sad because it was like 8 videos that walked you through step by step every single thing that you do to sew it, and it is sadly no longer with us. If you're brave and you want to follow drafting instructions on paper, Miss Carol Bell has a whole blog post that lists a bunch of GLBs with drafting instructions and different patterns in them. I'll have that linked below. And of course, I already mentioned What the Beck's tutorial, which is pretty lit. And I do have some patterns in the works, but they will not be up and ready for the public until February. But let's quickly touch on accessories. One of the greatest benefits of sewing for Lolita is that your accessories will always all match perfectly. And this is because they're made from the same fabric and notions, and it's awesome. So what accessories can you make? Well, wrist cuffs can be made from notions used on your gown. I have an example of that here. These are still blank. I haven't really decorated them yet. And then you can use like the same fabric in your main piece as like a ribbon or a bow on your wrist cuff. Very cute. Head pieces are not that hard to make. I may have a free pattern on the way, but more on that in the outro. And aside from half bonnets or full bonnets like this one, you could even make a full-on hat, Toto Didum did it, and La Bricaloose, who I have mentioned in the past, has excellent millinery tutorials. And while she is not a Lolita, I think that her historic style translates really nicely to the fashion. She's out here giving out free information like it's candy on Halloween, so for sure go check out her channel if you are interested in millinery. Chokers, bracelets, leg warmers, garters for the tops of your socks, jabats. I've also seen like overskirts and aprons of so many different kinds, little boleros, anything is possible. You can even make yourself like a pair of cool spats, or like cover a pair of thrifted shoes, or make like shoe clips. Honestly, the sky is the limit. And accessories are some of the easier things to start with because they're small. And a lot of beginner sewists, even outside of Lolita, are encouraged to start small with things like accessories so that they can, you know, learn how to use their machine and not have a huge project that they take on all at once, and they can get like instant gratification, or at least quicker gratification from finishing a thing. And that's a little bit more motivating than starting with like a huge daunting task like make a whole JSK. I'll put together a slew of tutorials that I found in like a little Google Drive for you guys and link that in the description box as well. Embellishing. One of the most exciting things about sewing for Lolita is having the freedom to put bows and teddy bears and glitter and sparkles and beading and lace and all kinds of embroidery. Okay. You could put just about anything on a Lolita garment because it's such a fun and expressive fashion, but you don't have to put the whole kitchen sink on it, right? Lolita is a hugely creative playground, but all of the designs have purpose and cohesion. And I'm not going to pretend like there's some sort of like magic number of bows to put on a JSK to finish it properly, or that there's some kind of a rule for how to end up with a cohesive design at the end. For the most part, that's just trusting yourself and thinking about it beforehand. For example, you can sketch things out more than once. I think I made like 10 sketches before I landed on this, and this was a pretty basic and simple design that I wanted. Play around on paper and make sure that you are absolutely in love before you make a finished thing. And then even when you do have the garment finished and you're ready to embellish, you can lay things on top of it and like really stare at it before you decide to commit. Like with this lace here, I laid so many different laces and ribbons on top of this seam before I landed on this specifically. I think I spent like 2 hours on it, honestly. And when possible, you can make the embellishments removable. This is removable, I can move it around. This bow is also removable. You can also make removable collars and bib pieces, and those can be either like completely separate where you clip them and then they lay on top of you, or they can be like pinned or snapped into place whenever you do or don't want them. This makes things really versatile and recordable, and it gives you more value for your time that you've poured into making them. And it also gives you the freedom to experiment with your cords more without having to contend with permanence. And one very common and easy way to add embellishment to a garment is to add buttons. And I am going to once again walk you through some very specific ways that you can use buttons, the type of buttons that are out there, the kinds of buttons that are readily available, and if you would like to skip that, here is the timestamp.
I'm kind of answering a question that I've never seen anyone ask, but there are a lot of buttons that I think are very exciting and suitable for Lolita, and I kind of want to talk about the options for buttons really quickly. These are all 2-hole buttons, and 2-hole and 4-hole buttons are sewn in the classic way you would expect to see a button sewn in. This one here is a nice sculpted brass button that you might want to use for military Lolita. You see these used in that a lot. This one here is actually a wood button that has been laser cut and then dyed, and these are common on Etsy. There's a lot of really cute Etsy sellers that make cute laser cut buttons like these. I picked these up and I love them. So if you have like a Mori or forest cord and you're making like a blouse or a JSK that needs some buttons, this might be a good option for you just because it is so cute and fun. This is a more basic 2-hole button. This one here is actually made out of genuine albaline. It's like a seashell, and it's a very nice texture. It picks up the light nicely, but it's still very subtle. And they also make mimic albaline buttons that are just like a pearlescent plastic finish. You can get molded buttons like this one here, which would also just very much jazz up the front of a JSK. Even if you have a JSK or a main piece that doesn't actually have like a button front, you can add a mock button front and a row of buttons just as decoration. I see that happen quite often. They also have cut crystal and cut glass buttons, and this I think would just be precious on a wrist cuff, just to subtly, you know, pick up the light. And then you'd have your big flowing romantic sleeve along with it. I think that would just be a really nice touch, and it would be subtle, but it would still, you know, add a little bit of pizzazz, because Lolita is very much a fashion that is about excess and over-the-top detail. Speaking of which, shank buttons are another style of button that you will see, and Military Lolita utilizes them quite a bit. I did show you the 2-hole button, brass button, but here are some shank buttons that are brass buttons that have a little bit more going on with them. You can see this is like a 2-piece, it's hollow, and this would just be sewn on using this little loop in the back here. And these come in a variety of styles. The only thing you've got to watch out for is sometimes they tarnish or rust. These ones here are vintage, so I probably won't be using them on anything, but just to show you, you know, some of the variety that you can find. And then speaking of shank buttons, even just from the craft store, there's quite a few that you can get your hands on, whether it's colored pearlescent shank buttons, which these ones here, very common, a blue one and a little white one. You can get fabric covered shank buttons, either in the same color fabric as your JSK if you buy a kit, or you can get a different fabric as like a contrast, a pop of color. This one here is a plastic one. It's got a opalescent finish. Isn't that fun? And craft stores like Joann's and Michael's and even Walmart tend to have ridiculous, fun, kitschy buttons like this one. And if you have a cord with a really particular vibe or print that you're going for, like perhaps Sweet Lolita with a pastry theme, odds are you can find a shank button that will help you really pull that look together.
Basically, any design that you love and will wear to the grocery store or out, you know, for a quick errand is worth making, whether or not it's like a proper Lolita fashion garment. It's okay if you wind up with something that you couldn't wear to a tea party, and it's okay if you wind up with something that you couldn't necessarily share on Reddit and get millions of upvotes. As long as you love it and you will wear it, you've succeeded. But hopefully I've helped you dodge some potential pitfalls and wind up with a cord that you will love and cherish forever. If you do make a dress, please tag me on Instagram. I would love to see it. I really love to see the things that people make. It's like one of my favorite things. I even do a whole series where I just gush over things that people have made. So please tag me and let me know if you would like to be featured. Anyways, thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. I really appreciate it when you guys, you know, stick around and engage with what I have to say. It makes me so happy. And it also really helps the channel too, which is nice. If you liked the video, please give it a like so that more people like you can see it. And don't forget, sharing is caring. If you want to support me, my alt fashion patterns, and this channel, then you can buy me a Ko-fi. My current goal is to raise $400 to cover my expenses from last January, I want to say, all the way out until February of next year. So $400 will cover everything. That includes programming, materials, basically everything I've had to buy to make all of this stuff and keep this show running. And once we meet that goal, I'm going to release 2 free patterns for y'all, and I think you guys have a guess as to what one of them might be. And yes, the tiny little tea bag brooches that clip onto here is included in the pattern. So if you would like your own kitschy tea bonnet, my coffee's down there, just saying. And if you can't or don't want to donate, no problem. Like, it means the world to me that you even watched to this point in the video. You're doing the most out here, but it is available. And I'm not actually monetized yet. It's taking YouTube a really long time to like actually process things. I was told that it would take like about a month. It has now been a month and a half. I need to like call the people, but I have really bad phone anxiety. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna call them. I'm an adult. I can handle this. I am a professional. I can call Stephanie. Anyways, thanks again for watching the video, and I hope that you had a good time learning with me, and I will see y'all in the next one, which I think is gonna be Winx Club related. I think, if all goes to plan. Yeah, I have no idea where my calendar went. That's actually a little bit disconcerting. But I do have a calendar. I have plans. Okay, goodbye! Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Oh, you can even see this is my strap lace. Because time is yeah. And here's the timestamp you want. Hello, Mr. Train.